Massive weekend of Breeders' Cup Win and You're In races is upon us. 15 Win and You're In races, Challenge Series races this weekend. 9 of them will be run across 3 tracks from coast to coast on Saturday. We're going to dive into a handful of those races using Race Lens. I'm Dan Tordjman with America's Best Racing, joined by my good friend Scott Coles, the NHC champion once again. And we've got a new shooter in the room, FanDuel TV's Dave Weaver. The three of us putting our heads together, trying to come up with some winners here. And I think we're on the right track. Dave, since you are, as I mentioned to you earlier, the guest of honor, I want to kick it to you. Welcome to the show. And B, tell me how you're approaching this weekend. It's almost overwhelming. There's so much good racing and so many good betting opportunities.
Yeah, well, great to be here with you guys. It's a huge weekend. So many Breeders' Cup implications that we'll have from across the country. I'm going to put my focus a little bit on Santa Anita. I think there are some very good races out there that are worth betting. The Keeneland card, as we get their short meet kicked off here in the fall, has some very good field sizes and some good wagering opportunities. Don't forget about the race, the Princess Rooney at Gulfstream Park. There's one horse that's actually cross-entered in the Princess Rooney and the TCA. Her name is Last Leaf, so we got to see where she ends up. But I think Scott's probably going to focus a little bit more on the card over at Belmont and Aqueduct. But yeah, you got a lot of different spots, but you probably have to pick one track that you want to focus on. And for me, that'll be Santa Anita.
Good. I'm glad you gave Gulfstream a little bit of love because, as you mentioned, Scott's pretty much focusing on New York. I took on Keeneland quite a bit, and we'll all chime in on some of those races there. And of course, we go to you in California. And incidentally, we're in 3 different cities here across the country to cover this sort of national day of Challenge Series races. So excited to dive into that. We're going to get to Scott in just a moment. I just wanted to mention, if you're watching us for the first time, you're not familiar with Race Lens, we're going to show you a bunch of the tools and features on Race Lens, including a new one that was just added this week, GPS data. So hang tight for that. And if you don't have a subscription, now would be the time to get one. You can get an unlimited monthly subscription for just $1. Use promo code RLBC1. So Race Lens Breeders' Cup 1, RLBC1. But the special promo right now is for a 1-year unlimited Race Lens subscription. The promo code is RLBC699P. And that's for $699. You get the whole year unlimited Race Lens subscription. So definitely take advantage of that right now. We'll be back at the end of the show with those promo codes again in case you missed them, or you could just rewind this. So let's dive into it. We're going to kick things off, as I mentioned, at Belmont at the Big A Saturday, the Frizette Stakes. That is race 5, and it's a win and you're in race for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. Scott, who do you got?
I was trying really hard to kind of decide where the money was going to go, and I'm guessing because the Life Talk, the number 2, that is a proven miler, or well, not a proven miler, but won a race at a mile, and the connections might take the most money. So I think horses have the most room to improve in start number 2. And if you look at the number 6, Emery, pretty solid debut. I don't love that it's in the slop. That would be my kind of concern, but did it with ease. It was so powerful. The time was solid. As you can see there in the PPs, the fractions were fast early. Got a pretty nice trip sitting, but it was sitting close enough to a fast pace for 2-year-olds that I'm not too concerned about how the trip was. I'm more concerned about how the horse did it. And I think at least got a little bit of an education. I think we'll like the stretch out quite a bit. One thing I did notice, it's kind of off book here, but is cross entered, but I believe the race is Friday at Keeneland. So, and that's at a mile and a 16th, which tells me that they don't have distance concerns about the mile. If they're debating between a mile and 16th and which big field they want to tackle. Probably has a good shot at both races. The race on Friday at Keeneland looks a little tougher. So in a 6-horse field, I'm thinking they might go here, but maybe someone on here has that information already. I'm not in tune enough with like all the trainers and everything to kind of know what the plan is, and I couldn't find an article, but Brad Cox has just been kind of incredible. In the past year, if we go over to his research on what he's done, in second career starts with 2-year-olds is kind of incredible. His win percentage, you can see there on the page, 41%, in the money 71%. Just kind of like a monster in spots like this. Things could go wrong, but I mean, he's just been so good on the dirt, such a good dirt trainer, just well placed, has horses well meant. And if you go back to the PPs, you can, another key, I mean, they paid not insane in these day and ages for price, but 235,000. The horse is well meant. They have plans for the horse. And I'm just kind of excited with the draw. Kind of has options. Sat behind in the fast enough fractions in a sprint. On the stretch out, you never know exactly what the plan is going to be, but it's going to have options. I'm going to get to see everything unfold, kind of in front of him. And I'm just mostly excited about this horse and the upside. I guess if I had to pick another horse, I would also take a look at the 5 just for the same reason. And we didn't really talk about this, but just the upside. And I thought that horse was really professional. I just didn't think the race was as strong. But these are the two I'm going to take a shot against. The Pletcher horse with the connections and the already winning a mile, I think has the least room to improve. And I also think is just going to take the most money. Rapoli, Pletcher, IRAD horse, but I could be wrong. So many unknowns in a race like this, but I'm most excited about the 6 and the upside here. So that's where I landed.
And not to be too corny, the 5 horse, just FYI for people watching, you saw that data come onto the screen when Scott was talking about Brad Cox, right? 41% in that particular search. That's a search that you can customize on Raceline. So you're looking at 2-year-olds fillies in particular. There, you can search for that. If you're looking for certain distances, success rates in certain instances, or any instance that you could think of, really, that's the power of Raceland. You can really customize and dig deep and drill into specific races, conditions, distances, surfaces, all of it. And you could do it pretty easily. All of us have picked it up, I think, fairly quickly after jumping in. So that, again, is one of the features of Racelands. Dave, I know you have an opinion on this one as well.
Yeah, just a couple of things that I looked at in this race. So the horse that Scott likes, Emery, wins first time out by almost 6 lengths. I almost wonder if it's better for a horse that won a close race instead of one that really didn't get tested that much down the stretch. And that's why I was looking at the 5 horse, just FYI, who won a photo finish, who won by a head. But I actually looked at the Bill Mott number for horses that had just won their maiden, and it wasn't particularly strong. So, I'm going to end up on the 2 horse Life Talk. And when you click on the true odds, and Scott was saying, where's the money going to go? Look at the true odds in this race. It's very, very rare where you see the adjusted true odds as low as they are here. Is it say 1 to 2 for Life Talk? I mean, that's
even
something
money.
you typically,
1 to 1 right now.
Even money. Okay.
Yep.
Something you typically don't see that low with the adjustment. So I think Life Talk is going to be very, very tough in there. But as you can see there, the price is not going to be very good.
Yeah. And speaking of adjusted true odds, there are filters that you could set across the board here, where you could essentially put emphasis on certain variables, and that will reflect on, in terms of the odds that you see. There you go. Here are the adjusted win percentage probability factors. You move them up and down based on what you think, based on your handicapping and your experience, is most important for this particular race. So based on Dave's handicapping, when he pulled it up last, based on his model, he's got 1 to 2 odds here.
Yeah, it was different.
And this one that we're using, it's even money. But nonetheless, I think your point is proven. Using a range of variables and factors, this horse is still coming out pretty short, and should have a very, very real shot. So, yep, that's the Frizette. I do want to touch on briefly the other big juvenile race here at Belmont at the Big A. It is the 8th race. It's the Champagne Stakes, winning you're in for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. A couple of horses I had my eyes on. Number 4, General Partner. So I am openly, I tell people all the time, like my weak spot is pedigree. And so when I use Race Lens, I'm often doing searches for, to try to figure out, what's the history with the dam? What should I know? Now, a lot of the sires, obviously the stallions, kind of what they turn out, but some of these dams you never know. And I just happened to do a search here, And it was interesting to find out that in dirt routes with her 2-year-olds, this particular dam has thrown 2 winners. So 2 starters, 2 wins, and sometimes you just have things like that pop out at you. And again, this isn't a okay, great, I'm 100% in. But if you already like this horse, that's some additional pedigree information that you could find with just a click or two on Race Lens. So general partner out of Fleeting Humor, who has produced a couple of winners there at 2 who have won going long on the dirt. So general partner is one who I think is interesting regardless. And then with that information, I'm even more interested. Another one I just wanted to mention briefly is number 5, El Grande O, won the Bertram Beauregard Stakes last month by more than 8 lengths. Take note of the horse he finished second to in that race 2 race back. It's a little hard to see there unless you're right up on your screen. But the horse is the Wine Steward. And I just wanted to call that out because I'm going to come back to this horse when I get into my Keeneland spiel coming up in a little bit, because we'll see him there in the Claiborne Breeders' Futurity. So the Wine Steward, you see he beats El Grande O there, and then El Grande O is going to take a ton of money here in this spot, coming off that 8 1/4 length win in the Beauregard last out. So a couple of really sharp looking horses there. Dave, figure I'd throw it to you real quick. Any strong opinion in that race?
I do like general partner. You got to worry about the way that he's been getting out of the gate, though. And in both of his starts, he's come away a little bit slow and has not been able to get out of the gate straight, has been bumped and draws in between 2 pretty quick horses. So we got to worry about the start there. The horse I liked a little bit was the 7-horse Gold Sweep. And, you see Jose Ortiz has been riding. He's not riding. Oh, no. He didn't choose off.
Lescano,
He's riding at Keeneland. He's riding. Yeah. He's not riding there. So I'm like, oh, where's Ortiz? Then you realize he's out of town riding some bigger races even in at Keeneland. So I'm okay, totally okay getting Lescano in this spot. This is kind of one of those horses that started out hot at the shorter distances, and as they've got longer, hasn't gotten any better. So I think a lot of people are going to totally disregard this horse and throw him out, saying he was maybe some sort of flash in the pan the first couple of starts. I think he can run back to those first couple of races and maybe jump in here at a decent price. So I do like your 4. I'll go 4-7.
Okay, I like it. And now we kind of shift all the way across to Santa Anita.
Yeah, I've looked at a lot of different things that we can use here on Race Lens, looking at true odds, looking at the way that the pace is going to develop, looking at a trainer stat here with Todd Pletcher, and then looking at the new GPS data as well. But let's start with the horse that I like, and that is the 6 horse BU for Todd Pletcher. He nominated 3 horses for this race, and this is a race that has been dominated by California horses. You rarely see New York horses shipping out for this race to begin with, but the fact that he nominated 3 means that he had a plan, with the Breeders' Cup being at Santa Anita this year, to bring this horse early, try to get a win over the track, and then have a very big chance going to the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. So when you go to the number 6 horse BU and click on the research for trainer Todd Pletcher, you are going to be able to look at horses everywhere or look at horses just on this circuit. So if you just look at Todd Pletcher over the last 5 years with horses that he sent at Santa Anita, you're going to see a lot of December racing. You're going to see a lot of November racing, Santa Anita or Del Mar, actually. So all these horses are coming for the Breeders' Cup or maybe shortly thereafter. But when you look back to 2019, you see Vino Rosso shipping out earlier in the year. He won the Gold Cup in May, then came back and won the Breeders' Cup Classic. So this is a move, I think, that Todd Pletcher has planned here, has in mind for BU to come out, win, and then win again in just a few weeks later in that first weekend of November in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. So I think that's a little bit of a sneaky play for me here. Not going to be favored because Muth is certainly going to be the big favorite here for Bob Baffert, a guy that's won this race 4 out of the last 5 years. He just seems to always have the dominant 2-year-old in California. And this isn't even his first string horse, because this is a horse that got beat last time out, but is definitely looking to bounce back from that loss at stablemate Prince of Monaco last time out. But Muth is a horse that won here at Santa Anita 2 starts back and has a lot of speed. So when you look at the race projection in this race, it has him pretty clear here early on the first call, and then at the second call as well. You see a couple of lengths in front on that first point of call, and then starting to get a little bit of a challenge around the turn with my 6 BU sitting in a pretty nice spot in third. So Muth, obviously a big chance. The in the money true odds for me is showing at 79.1%. So he's obviously going to be the favorite. I think he's beatable. When you look at the true odds screen, you look at the highest last pace. How about that number for next level? The best in the field. And he's probably going to be somewhere in the, I would think 10-1 range, but we know he can finish. And then one other thing, let's look at, here's a bonus long shot for you. Just a horse that's caught my eye on the GPS, where it denotes how fast horses are traveling at different points of call. It shows strides and it shows miles per hour. He was moving 34 miles an hour in the stretch. A lot of the horses you see in this race, 30, 31, they're slowing down. So approaching the top of the lane, they're going 35, 36, and then they're going 30 or 31. He was carrying the same speed in the stretch as he was around the turn, which to me is very, very impressive to see that he can finish like that. And, if he can finish like that in a 6.5 furlong race, should bode well for his chances of stretching out and maybe jumping into the try or the super in this mile 16th American Pharoah. So I'm going to go with the 6-horse BU as my top pick.
I like it. Scott, I know you're getting first look at some of this GPS data. I mean, any thoughts? I mean, I know you use a ton of programming, your own, stuff that you look at. How could you use info like this to advance your handicapping?
Comparing horses, when you get a race where people are coming from all sorts of different tracks, it kind of gives you another way to kind of like normalize numbers for me. So I'm really excited about using it that way, where I have circuits I don't look at, and kind of like what Dave just pointed out, like how they're finishing in the stretch, where they're different parts of the race, and how if you draw like your own pace projector or use a pace projector and you kind of like see, all right, this is how it's going to play out, this many miles an hour versus this many miles an hour, and then these are the horses that are going to come from the back and how have they finished, and there are others, because miles per hour is miles per hour. I know it can still be affected by track conditions and the track, how they run, but it's still just another barometer to know if what you saw at a track you don't really follow was kind of real or not, and how it stacks up against others. So I'm excited to use it that way.
No doubt. And you could find the data that you see here within the Race Lens PPs. So you just got that icon at the top of the PPs for every track. So GPS data, you click that, and you could also, as we talked about, building your own angles here, you could build out angles with the GPS data. So you could customize these angles, and just kind of want to walk you through briefly how to do it, just so you don't have to be a scientist to figure this stuff out. You hit manage angles on the home page, and then once this page loads, you're just going to simply click create new angle. Under the profile button, you click that, you click horse. And then when you scroll down, you see that those 4 new criteria there, new options for top speed, fastest cumulative time, average stride length, and average stride per second. Really, really cutting edge stuff here on Race Lens. Just again, another tool. This isn't going to be like any other angle. It's not going to be the one-stop shop, but it's going to complement your handicapping. There's also another way to pull up and store these angles. You can set up angles via the criteria under case there. You click last race, and then you scroll down and you'll find 4 options there as well, with the top speed, cumulative time, average stride length, and average strides per second. So really cool stuff there. Check it out. And as I mentioned, you got these promos going on right now where you could get in for $1. So no sense in not jumping in and giving it a shot. Let's move over to Keeneland, because there's lots of good racing there as well. We're going to squeeze in 2 of the win and you're in races, starting with race 9, the Claiborne Breeders' Futurity. Obviously another one for the 2-year-olds out there. This is a race. I mean, geez, Pletcher won this race last year with Forte. He's won it 3 times overall. He's got the morning line favorite in here and locked. You got McPeak with a couple of horses in here. He's won it before. And of course, you've got Brad Cox in it, right? So Timberlake is cross-entered here and in the Champagne. Our expectation is that he'll probably go here. And also entered with him is his stablemate, number 3, Awesome Road. And Brad Cox, of course, won this race in a couple of years ago with Essential Quality. So history here on the side of Brad Cox, as well as just a really good looking horse here. We looked at some Brad Cox research before. You always expect it to look good. This particular search that I did was around, the blinkers coming off this horse. And I couldn't make sense of it entirely. But when you look at the race shape of this race, that there is a good amount of speed in it. So I didn't totally mind. I was like, maybe they're trying to settle him down. And then just figured, let me do the research here. How does Brad Cox do when he takes the blinkers off? As expected, 30% win percentage, 66%, just a casual 66% in the money rate there. So would expect, he's doing this with obvious intention and knowing that it's the right move for this particular horse. And if we go back, you could look at, in particular, the last race there, the Hopeful. You see in the notes there underneath that race, it says off heels. And I'm not going to put you through watching the whole replay with me, but if you do watch the replay when you get some time, which of course you could do there by simply clicking on the video icon, you'll see that he really was headstrong early. I mean, he wanted to get to the front, and jockey there, Florent Giroux, had a little bit of trouble settling him down and took a little energy out of him. And so, blinkers coming off here. My expectation is that they want to try to rate him again, and I would expect that that's the case, given the fact that his stablemate, Awesome Road, the 3-horse, has speed. And also on the outside, you see Just Steel, the 7-horse. So you're looking at the race projection. They have 3 horses across the board here, across the line in terms of early pace horses. That Timberlake isn't going to go head to head with his stablemate Awesome Road. And so I think the calculus from the Cox barn is either Awesome Road is fast enough to get to the front and maybe Just Steel doesn't break or whatever it might be. But if Just Steel goes and Awesome Road has to go, well, then you know what? Timberlake's sitting right off of them and hopefully a little more settled in this spot and can just, make that late move, maybe even get first run and kick. And so Just Steel, a horse I do want to give a shout out to. I think he's super fast. That maiden special weight race on August 5th, that 99 you see circled there, that means he had the highest Equibase speed figure for any horse in this race. So that's literally the best race run based on Equibase speed figures in this race. And he was also 3+ lengths clear of Locked, who you might have heard me reference earlier is the 9-horse in this race. It's also the 7-5 morning line favorite in this race. So there's that. So Just Steel, obviously flattered by the improvement of Locked in his second start where he wins by 8+ lengths. And then the 1 horse I do want to mention is the 1 horse. This is a long shot play for me. If the pace gets hot, I think this is your horse at a price here. In the funny side last out, you can see on the right side there, wherever you see the red arrow, that up arrow, that means that the horse had a little bit of trouble in the race. And that trouble indicator shows that, reflects some of the issues he had at the start. And despite that, he dug in and he ran a spectacular race there, got up past El Grande O, the horse that I mentioned earlier. So, and El Grande O is likely going to go off as one of the favorites in the Champagne, but he really dug in after a rough start in that race and got up and got past. So he showed me something there. And this horse, look, he's 3 for 3. He's undefeated. Steady progression there from 84 to 94. Those last 2 Equibase speed figures. I think a lot to like there from the Wine Steward. And one final thing on the Wine Steward, and then I'll stop rambling. I do like the fact that in a race where I'm projecting there to be a decent amount of pace, the late pace is with the Wine Steward. That 104.5 late pace figure there tops of any horse in this field, even better than Locked, who showed incredible closing kick last out. The Wine Steward still just a touch better to date. So you never know, these 2-year-olds, you never know which one. There's probably a horse lurking in here who's ready to take a big step forward. These are 2-year-olds in the fall. Some horses are going to take big steps forward. Some horses are going to come back and kind of be just as good as they were when we last saw them. But for me, the Wine Steward at a price is interesting, but as my top pick, I'm going to go with Timberlake. Dave, any quick thoughts on this one?
I like the Wine Steward. I don't think we're going to get 8-1. I think that horse is going to get bet. And just a note as far as post times go. So the Champagne with El Grando goes about an hour and a half before this race. So we'll kind of get a gauge to how the Wine Steward might play based on the result in the Champagne. But however that race comes out an hour and a half earlier, it's not going to change the fact that I do think the Wine Steward is an absolute must use in all wagers. If you're playing pick 4, pick 5, if you're playing that pick 6 attached to to Santa Anita. The Wine Steward is definitely going to be on my ticket.
All right. And Scott, I know you haven't had a chance to take too deep of a dive into the Keeneland card on Saturday. Just wondering, in terms of, you've obviously had history playing a lot of these races at Keeneland, in terms of, track profile, horses, maybe trainers connections you want to focus on in some of these races, particularly this 2-year-old race here. Any thoughts there?
Well, you can kind of copy the angle I already talked about, though. Awesome Road stood out to me just because if Brad Cox is putting him in this race, I think he's going to be ready. And second time Brad Cox, a lot of these horses have had a lot of experience, but who has the most to improve? The horse that is 1-for-1, and you would have no idea what it's going to look like. But I mean, fine enough breeding, you get the big switch to Flavian Pratt on the dirt, which I love. So that's the one I'm most excited to bet. But I took a long look at the Wine Steward too, which makes me agree with Dave that we're not getting 8-1. Because I trust I trust Maker. I mean, I trust Maker in the stretch out, but the only reason I thought you might get 8-1 is just because he's 3-for-3 sprinting, and now they're finally stretching him out. Sometimes maybe people back away because of that with all the powerful connections in this race. So I don't think it'll be crazy far off because of if everybody stays in this race and Timberlake stays in this race, you're gonna be a lot of money going to the top 3. So I mean, I don't think 8-1 is like impossible, but the fact that we've all 3 mentioned them and we're only 3 out of so many people playing this doesn't bode well.
No doubt. And Scott, I know you did take a deeper look at the next race, which is a fun betting race as well, and where I know we probably will have a clear-cut favorite here who, we're certainly not getting anything bigger than 2-1. Well, maybe drifts up a little bit, but nowhere near sort of a fat price.
Chance.
Yeah. So
if I get 2-1, you'll see me empty my account.
All right. Well, tell us about it. Who do you like here at the Coolmore Turf Mile?
I might start a second account if
my account's already empty. So
yeah, well, I don't get to play that much with the kids, so I've still got something in there. I think.
Well, I like a different horse. That's why I was like, you know what? I'm betting against Master of the Seas, stupidly, right? But I like a couple of different horses, and I'll explain why. But you go first. Make the case here for Master of the Seas.
So I guess starting out with the PPs, and you see step slow in the comments. You see the fractions early, 23:47, how far back the horse was. I mean, anytime you're coming over here in a grade 1 and closing into a slow pace, I mean, I always love that for turf horses. And plus, I mean, just nothing about that race was just like handed to him. I mean, it wasn't a tough field, like overly tough field, but if you look at the replay, and we're going to kind of like push forward into the stretch, and he's the one horse coming around kind of just buying his time, but so athletic around the turn, effortlessly just gobbling up ground, no panic. I mean hand shoving at this point, but I mean, just by the time that horse straightens out and wants to go, being incredibly wide, just the late kick is just what I'm most excited about. I mean, it is just a blitz of a finish, and just kind of like looking around to see. I mean, you saw one like kind of right hand there, but other than that, I mean, it was just hand shoved all the way, which tells me that there's plenty more left in the tank if we get into a fight here. And can't get that much worse of a setup, like missing the break and having that slow of a pace in front of you. So I'm just like not concerned about any of the scenarios. I mean, ideally you don't miss, break a step slow this time in a much better field, I would say. But just if you kind of like look at the different, well, now we're going to an Appleby angle. I mean, he's been a monster when he brings horses over here. I think Buick's actually riding a different horse of his at a different track, so it's going to be who I would say. I mean, Doyle's probably what, Dave, would you say the second option for Buick when he's over here?
He rode him at Ascot and won, so that's obviously a good thing that you see that that connection.
But if Buick's not available, I mean, this is it's not like it's a bad rider. It's just I prefer to see Buick riding everything, because he's just done they're off the charts, the numbers when those two team up. But I mean, I'm not worried at all about the jockey. I mean, the sample size isn't massive, but I mean, 56% wins, 88% in the money. I mean, he's just been dominant when he comes over here. So I mean, this horse is well met, already has a race in the US. like I said, nothing went particularly great for him. Like as far as the setup, it wasn't as big of a challenge as he's going to get today. But and if we go over to the True Odds page, I mean, you're going to see the late pace is just not even close. I mean, assuming these numbers are right, I mean that's about as big of a gap on a field as you're going to see in this big of a race. I mean, that is just a massive advantage, assuming all these numbers are calculated, correctly. And then again, you can play. The best part about race lens, as we've showed, there's so many different ways to play to kind of get the numbers how you want them and kind of like use your handicapping angles. And this is what I love about race lens in general, is just the more work you're willing to put in, the better you're going to do. And it doesn't reward people for just opening up something and just saying, oh, I'm going to play this horse because it tells me to. It rewards you for putting in the work yourself, using all the powerful tools they have available and kind of coming up with your own info. And that's my favorite part about race lens, is that there's so many people out there that'll just play blindly what someone tells them to do or what a software tells them to do. This is going to tell you, it's going to point you in the right direction for things, but the more work you do, the better you're going to kind of get your numbers to come out. So everything I've seen, I love. And then if you kind of like look at the adjusted true odds for that horse, 7-5, I mean, in a race where I think you'll be lucky if you get 7-5, I mean, that's insane too. I think we're looking at even money, but we'll see. Up to the mark could take quite a bit of money. I just don't know that up to the mark is going to be at his preferred distance. I think up to the mark wants to go to, farther. The best races, I mean, just seem to be farther. But if you do look back at up to the mark, the interesting part, 3 back, the last time did run in a mile. I mean, that's no joke of a field. I mean, it was kind of chasing the loose. Chesperay kind of took him on the turn, and then Modern Games and up to the mark, but finished fairly close to Modern Games that day. I'm not sure if Modern Games had given up at that point, but it was, I mean, that's no joke. One of the highest rated runners at a mile, obviously, that we've seen in a long time is Modern Games and racing here. So, but I'm very excited about Master of the Seas. I think we haven't seen Master of the Seas best, and I just think if the break goes well and is in contention, I just think that blitz of a stretch run that you're going to see is just going to be incredible. So that's where I'm going on Saturday.
And look, I'm not gonna disparage Master of the Seas, right? I think he's clearly the best horse in this race. You mentioned that late pace figure, just like, head and shoulders above the rest. I just think, look, to the point you made early on, is that there's a difference between the Woodbine Mile field and I think some of the runners that he's going to face here, most of them being, grade 1 tested at a minimum, just tested in graded stakes races. Whereas in that Woodbine Mile, I would say at least 3/4 of the field, going from memory, just kind of, Woodbine horses kind of knocking heads against each other, and now the big boy came to town, right? So the other knock, I mean, which again, it obviously doesn't hold for this instance, given how well he ran at Woodbine, is that Charlie Appleby has not had the best year. So relying on some of that data in past years where he was just for whatever reason absolutely clicking and had a barn full of monsters. It hasn't been that way for him this year. So not to say he can't keep going with Master of the Seas here, who's already shown to be in form, but maybe just raise the kernel of doubt. I do agree with you on up to the mark. I think 5-2 second choice will take money, and I don't want any part of him here. I think he's a bit pace dependent, even though he's won, the 2 races he won early in the year in the summer, he did pretty handily, and it didn't matter what the pace was in those races, he won them pretty easily. I think here the pace will be slow enough, and given the break and sort of the spacing of races, I anticipate that this is a setup for that next race, and this just to get some conditioning into him. Not that he can't still hit the board. I just don't like him to win here. Looking at the bottom of the screen there, you've got some quick analysis as the pace projects to be a slow one. The advantage goes to the horses that will be close to the early pace. And I think that's what I found truly lined up with my analysis and watching replays of some of the runners in this race. And then ultimately, it kind of put me on a couple of long shots, which I'm not angry about. So the first one I wanted to talk about was actually, before we do that, we had it up on the screen. You saw all the E's there. I was going to mention that there's 2 of them. this sort of teases ahead to the horse I was going to mention, but you've got the 3 Stitched and the 7 Atone. Those are 2 of the 3 horses we see there. English B, I don't like in this spot. Never runs particularly well at Keeneland, or doesn't run, I'd say, his best at Keeneland. So let's just go with 3 and 7. And with 3 Stitched, I think this horse is the main speed. Can he overcome what he lacks in class by getting to the front and slowing things down? I think he can. You look way down in his PPs. You see Brian Hernandez Jr. He hasn't been on for a while, but those 2 races that he was aboard, 2 of his best earlier races. So it's good to see after a long gap. Brian Hernandez, takes the mount here again. Don't usually get too caught up in the jockey, said a lot of the jumping around to the jockeys. But in this particular spot, when I see some races there were early on, clearly, there was a connection there at least, and there was some success with a particular jockey on. Him coming back to me is a good sign. And so, I just think this horse gets to the front. I don't know if he's good enough to hang on, and he probably isn't. But at somewhere between 15 and 20 to 1, I want him in my exactas and certainly my trifectas if I'm playing. The other one that I thought was interesting was the 7 Atone, best career Equibase speed figure, way down at the bottom again. You kind of got to go back, but that 111, that highlight there, that was at a mile. It was at Keeneland, it was in the Maker's Mark mile. So some history over the course and distance. Mike Maker, Luis Saez taking the mount here. I thought this horse is probably the one who's most likely to be sitting just off of Stitched. I think they run 1-2 most of the way around, and then they try to hold off as many of the closers as they can, including Master of the Seas, who I think will be coming late. And so I'm just hoping either Stitched or Atone are good enough to hang on for a larger piece, and I'll probably be using those 2 in exactas and trifectas with Master of the Seas. And then just a quick shout out to Annapolis way on the outside. Don't love the draw from this spot, given his running style. I think he's going to be floated out a little bit early going into that first turn, and essentially, I think he's in a position where he's not going to be on the lead. He's going to be a couple lengths off, and I feel like he's going to be 3 to 4 wide the entire way around. So while I think classy, and while I think he's proven over Keeneland, I kind of got him not ranked sort of a notch below. So that's the way I looked at this race. Dave, any thoughts on this particular race?
Yeah.
A great betting race.
A couple of things. Number one, William Buick is riding at Belmont in the 9th race, a horse named Measured Time for Appleby. How much of a monster must that horse be for him to choose to go there instead of riding Master of the Seas here? So that's a horse that we can look at Belmont. But getting back to this particular race, I think Master of the Seas is a lock. And just visually, when we saw that race over at Woodbine, and I watched it live, it was like, wow, this horse is an absolute freak. But for me, you guys don't seem to be that much in love with Up to the Mark. To me, it looks like a 3-horse race between Master of the Seas, Set Piece, and Up to the Mark. When I was looking at your main page there where it had your angles matched, I saw a lot of green, which are positive angles. My page actually has some red. So not only are there angles that are good, there are negative angles. And for the 4-horse Set Piece, Brad Cox had a couple of negative angles on horses that, even though the Arlington Million is a grade 1, it is showing this as an increase in class, basically by 5 or more points. And that's a negative ROI of 41% for Brad Cox. So I'm going to throw out the 5 Set Piece. And if there was one all day long talking about an ice cold exacta, this is the race for me. I'm just going to hammer a 1-5. I know it's chalky, but I don't think this race can be anything else.
I was worried we were going to make it through a whole show without one of those. So thank you.
Almost.
Awesome. Those are the races that I think we've invested most of our energy in. Before we came on, Dave, you'd mentioned that there might be a few other races. I don't know if there's anything else at Keeneland that you have your eyes on. I love that you flagged the horse at Belmont at the Big A, because that totally went over my head. I didn't notice that. Anything else we should be keeping an eye out for on Saturday?
Well, Scott had kind of mentioned that he knew he saw Buick somewhere else, and that that is the spot that he's going to be over at Belmont. Yeah, real quick, let's just go back to Santa Anita, and we can talk either the Chandelier, which goes earlier in race number 3, or we can talk the Rodeo Drive, or both real quickly. Let's start. Yeah, let's go to race number 3 at Santa Anita. That is the Chandelier, and as I had mentioned, this is a race that has come up very, very soft. And for me, I thought the 6 horse Gate to Paradise was the prototypical lightly raced, patiently handled John Sheriff's horse that had a chance to really excel here in her 3rd career start. I know she's a maiden, but she was grade 1 place last time out when she was 3rd in the Del Mar Debutante, and nobody was beating Tamara that day. So she, to me, is kind of an up and coming horse that I'll play at a bit of a medium price maybe in the Chandelier. And then when we go to the Rodeo Drive, it's really a stacked field of fillies and mares. And I say fillies and mares because we do have a filly in this race named Anisette, the 3-year-old, that is finally getting tested against the older horses here. And, will she or won't she be able to step up in class and handle that? To me, I think she might end up being a little bit over bet in this race, and maybe look for a horse that's coming from the other side of the country. Dia is the one that I'm going to see when we get to post time, if the odds are good enough. But that's the 6 horse Dia. But I don't know, if she's overplayed, I might end up just skipping this race. But it's a very competitive race, maybe one of the more competitive that I saw all day.
Fun fact: Jessica Paquette's favorite horse, like absolute horse crush, Didia. Well,
so. If it's her crush, she definitely knows how to say it. So Didia, yeah, she's a nice 5-year-old mare that just fires every single time since coming up from Argentina. She's been sensational.
Yeah. Did you want to just throw out a quick horse in the Chandelier? Just a top pick there.
Yeah, it was the Sheriff's horse that I mentioned.
Yeah, that's right. Sorry.
Let's see. It was the 6th. Yeah, 6 Gate to Paradise.
Oh, that's right. We did see that. Yeah. Sorry. I'm clicking around here.
I went the other way.
Clicking around here, and I missed that. But I do remember you saying that just a moment ago. So anyhow, Dan is okay, everyone. You don't have to check in on me. I'm actually okay. I promise. Scott, any closing thoughts from you before we wrap up? We did this in good time. We were usually trying to just cram everything in here at the last second. We've made good time today. But Scott, any closing thoughts here?
I don't think so. I'm really excited to dive into this GPS data and kind of create some new angles now that we have this available. It's so new that I haven't done the work that I want to do on it yet, but I'm pretty excited to be able to use that going forward in the big tournaments like the BCBC and the NHC and things like that. So great addition. And I think that's what I'm most excited about. And also just kind of taking notes. If you play on Breeders' Cup Day at all, or if you're playing in the BCBC or you might play in the BCBC, these are weekends you kind of get some free work done early, and if you save those notes, because if you might not remember, if you saw something and it comes up on Breeders' Cup Day, it could come in handy. And that's all going on. So these are big weekends kind of to see who you like or who you want to bet against that day. Because that can be even more valuable is if you see a horse that you won, but you saw the trip was dressed up or really too good to be true, and they get overbet on Breeders' Cup Day. That's also something you want to save, and you can kind of save all those things in notes, and you can keep horse notes in this and do the whole thing. So lots to be excited about in a weekend like this, and just pay attention. Even if you're not betting it, just pay attention, because these are horses that you're going to see again.
Dave, what's the weekend look like for you in terms of the work schedule, FanDuel TV? What's on tap?
Yeah, so I'll be at Santa Anita Friday and Sunday. As it turns out, this big Saturday of winning your in races, my daughter Sophie is receiving an award at the UCLA game against Washington State that afternoon. So I took the day off months ago, and it just happened to land on this particular Saturday. So I'm going to be at the UCLA game with my phone in hand, watching all of these races for sure.
Wow. What kind of award?
So it was like Student of the Year, basically, for her school. So I think around Southern California, they invite these kids to come to the game, and then they acknowledge them, I think, during a timeout or something, and over the loudspeaker they say, "Let's welcome all the all these students. So it was something I'm definitely not missing, but I'm very
Yeah.
excited about it. I haven't been to a college football game in probably 10 years too. So it'll be fun to get out there.
Yeah, that's awesome. Congratulations.
It
Yes.
interferes with horse racing. So, college football is on the back burner, but not this Saturday.
Yeah. Wow. Well, congrats, Sophie. That is
Yeah.
not only a top-notch handicapper, but also one of the students of the year. Come on
Yeah,
now.
that's-
Come on. All
Go,
right.
Sophie.
Well, yeah, that is awesome. All right. Well, we told you at the top there are a number of ways to get in and have access to all of this information. You could get in for $1. You could get in for $1, test out all the different search functions we showed you. You can create angles. You can mess around with that new GPS data for $1. You can use Race Lens Unlimited. You just use promo code RLBC1. And then if you're, somebody who's tried this out before and you're like, you know what, this is really cool, I just want to sign up for the year. You got the 1-year unlimited subscription now available for just $699 all year long. You can use this. Use promo code RLBC699P. I am so excited for this weekend, and that was really cool. That was a lot of fun hanging with my guys here, Scott and Dave. Wish you all good luck this weekend, and we'll see you next time.
Good luck, everyone.